Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you're viewing this podcast. This podcast series, it's called Race, Culture, and the Church. Race, Culture, and the Church. And it started about 1 week after the murder of George Floyd. So we've been around a minute, and we attempt to step into space that often is neglected. And so like a Venn diagram, race, culture, and church are three circles. And we like to try and hit an intersection. 100% of the time we get 2 out of 3. Sometimes we'll get 3 out of 3, but that's the objective. And so I invite you to look at our body of work and catch up with where we're at. And today I am pleased. I've been looking forward to this. This space has been missing someone like a Ryan Lillis, the Associate General Manager for KVIE's Abridged. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. Associate General Manager. Before we even get into what that title is, who's Ryan Lillis?
Yeah, I'm a lifelong journalist. Walked into my first newsroom when I was 18 years old. We're recording this on my 50th birthday. So
happy birthday. You came in here on your birthday. Oh my God, I feel bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I'll let people do the math of how long I've been doing this for. Found my way to Sacramento about 20 years ago with my wife. Started as an intern at the Sacramento Bee. My wife and I are from New York originally. We thought we'll do 2 years in Sacramento. Frankly, not even sure I could have found Sacramento on a map when I was living in New York. I knew they had a basketball team that was pretty fun to watch 25 years ago.
Back in the day.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Got here, we'll do 2 years, go back to New York. Now we have 2 kids in a home and we'll never leave Sacramento. Spent about 18 years at the Bee. And in 2024, probably prior to that, but 2024 was kind of the aha moment where I kind of reached the realization that the local news landscape was not delivering for this community, that this community deserved something better, something more authentic, something that listened to the community, something that put service over profits, something that responded to the community's needs and wants. So left the Bee on my own, quickly merged my effort to launch a new news service here with PBS KVIE. I was really picky. If I was going to partner with someone, if I was going to join forces with someone, there had to be an organization that shared my values and my mission. And I found that in KVIE, a public media organization that's been serving this community for going on 60 years at that point. And I just felt like this was a perfect merger.
So did you find them or did they find you?
A mutual kind of acquaintances
each other. Yeah.
Introduced me to the general manager and president, David Lowe. We had lunch. He had been talking about getting into a local news space. We found that, again, our missions, our values were aligned. I wanted to do a nonprofit. They're a nonprofit. We quickly came to an agreement that I would join KVIE. And we spent a year listening to this community, asking this community, what do you want from your news and information? What topics aren't being served or aren't being covered enough? What audiences aren't being served? What tone do you want? What values and mission are you looking for from a news source? We spent a full year listening before we launched Abridged. And we launched Abridged. That's our digital news service, abridged.org. We launched it on September 16th, 9/16. We like to say, you never let a good marketing opportunity go to waste. So we launched it on 9/16/2025. Morning newsletter, Monday through Friday. We have a food and drink newsletter on Tuesdays, an arts and culture newsletter on Thursdays, a newsletter that launched a few months ago on Wednesdays for Yolo County. And we have some big expansion plans in the year ahead. And it's all driven, again, by listening, responding to what this community wants. It's also really important to note that our information is free. Our site is free.
No paywall.
No paywall. And that comes from the belief that news and information should not be accessible only to those who can afford to pay for it or want to pay for it. And I I don't criticize news sources that have a paywall as part of their kind of revenue structure, but for us, our values were we believe that vital news and information should be accessible to all. Obviously comes with the challenges of how do we raise money to pay our bills, right? And so we are working through that nonprofit model of relying on memberships and donations and sponsorships and major donors and whatnot. But this community has responded, I think, exceeding our expectations in terms of how many people are reading with us, how many people are engaging with us. And everything we've done was based on that listening that we did in that year before we launched, which gave us a huge advantage over other kind of what you've seen in news sites, that they go out, they think they know what the community wants. We spent so much time. What do you need? What do you want? I probably did 150 to 200 just one-on-ones with people. What's missing here? We did a region-wide survey. We did focus groups, literally with the two-way mirror, and we're just really thoughtful about it. And we continue to listen. So with our expansion plans, we're going to start covering places like Placer County, which is a part of our region that has not a lot of consistent quality news and information. We're going to expand with a reporter in the state capitol, but not in the frame that you see a lot of state capitol coverage, which is this major thing happened. This is what it means for Gavin Newsom. I don't care what it means for Gavin Newsom. I want to know what it means to my commute from Elk Grove, for my children's education in North Sacramento or Folsom, for my ability to afford a home. What are the decisions being made at the Capitol? What is the direct impact on the people who live here? So everything we do, again, is community first and putting the people first.
So you cut your teeth. You said 18 years, correct? 18 years in the print business. Is the ethic that you just described, or your foundational aspiration that you just described, was that there in frustration in a print area, or it's just a non sequitur that given that during that time, it was a different time, different era, there wasn't even that possibility. I'm hearing a lot of wonderful aspirational things. Did that not exist?
I'll give you the unfiltered answer.
Okay, please do. For this is an unfiltered space.
Yeah. So I walked into the Sacramento Bee newsroom in 2006, and my first response was, I have made it. Like, this is a juggernaut. Not only that, but this one story I tell is, they sent me to cover a fire in the Plumas National Forest, 200 miles from Sacramento. And I remember driving up a dirt road, end of the dirt road, Sacramento Bee box. I'm like, this is a institution that this region values and loves. I will say it is still an institution, and this region needs places like the Bee. I read the Bee every day. They do incredible, great local journalism. I think things changed when they went into bankruptcy. Unfortunately, they were purchased by a hedge fund. I don't think that the quality of local journalism has suffered. Again, I feel very strongly, I'm a fan of the Bee. I will never criticize places like the Sacramento Bee. So many great former colleagues there who are working so hard. I felt like primarily one of the differences that I had was the information being free and accessible to all, to it being homegrown and authentic, and the Bee with now kind of national ownership is no longer just, the McClatchy family. Again, my son goes to McClatchy High School, right? I mean, a family that had literally built this
iconic in the city.
Iconic in the city, right? Exactly. And so McClatchy Park, it's, and I think a lot of that is still there. What it really came down to me was I look at the Bee newsroom and other newsrooms. I don't want to just focus on the Bee, but there are hundreds of fewer journalists in this region than there were 20 years ago. This region needs more journalists. And I felt like this was an opportunity to grow journalism in this region, and having more public service journalism here in Sacramento, where it deserves to have more of that voice, more of that authentic news and information. I felt like this was an opportunity to provide more. So it is not our goal to put the Bee or whoever else out of business. It is to be supplemental, to add, to add and provide that more of that quality journalism that this region deserves.
You said that this region needs more journalism, I guess, as someone said, as like Carter needs pills. Why does this region need more journalism?
Yeah. There are a lot of stories not being told. There are a lot of voices in the community. So I'll give you an example of something I learned. A lot of news organizations, they'll look at a community that we'll say was traditionally under-resourced or undervalued or ignored, and they'll say, we're going to go into this community and we're going to give it a voice. Well, that's a totally wrong way to look at it. These communities have voices. What your role is to provide that stage and that platform for those voices to be elevated. And because of decisions, again, 100 different decisions impacting the national media landscape, a lot of voices, a lot of communities, their voices were not being heard. A lot of topics were not being covered at all. A lot of them weren't being covered correctly. I do give the state capitol coverage as kind of an example, where a lot of it is based on, floor votes and baseball, insider baseball, and political impacts, instead of focusing on the issues that directly impact people's lives. And so that's also kind of the reframing that we're trying to accomplish, is like everything we do, it's highlighting the impacts of the people who live with the consequences of these major decisions happening.
If I were to read Ryan's article in Plumas County years ago, would I see that?
Yeah. So that was a forest fire where one person lost their home, and I found that guy whose home was burned to the ground. But, I think that B 20 years ago, and no one would argue with this. I mean, that was a newspaper that weighed like 5 pounds, right? We were everywhere and did so much. And, I think the model also has changed, where that was a print model, right? Where you didn't know if people were actually reading anything you wrote, because you delivered the print paper to somebody's home. You had no idea after that whether they read every story on the front page, or they skipped right to the
sports section
or the classifieds, right? You had no idea. The digital age has given us a lot more information of what people really value, what kinds of stories and topics they really value, which has created an advantage for news organizations, but it's also created this so much noise and this space where I think for a lot of people, it's hard to determine the authenticity or the truthfulness between what's actual news and what's content. So that's the battle we're always facing, the difference between news and content. Because a lot of people now, they're telling us I get my news from Instagram. It's like, okay, are you verifying that what you're seeing on these platforms is true? Or is it just content that kind of aligns with what you already thought, was going on there? Because then you create these echo chambers and there's just so much noise. The other thing that I get troubled with is I'm also a habitual reader of the New York Times. I read it every single morning. There are days when the New York Times feels like a doom scroll. A lot of news now, it just feels so overwhelming to people. And we're trying to create kind of an antidote to that.
Does that go to, your name itself, Abridged?
Yeah.
There's the dictionary definition. Right. What's the lived out implication of using that title?
Yeah. So our newsletter, our goal is that if you have 2 minutes in the morning to kind of become an informed citizen and you read our newsletter, you're going to walk away from reading that newsletter in 2 minutes feeling informed and feeling connected. So a lot of times what you'll see in our newsletter is, we kind of joke, come for the city hall coverage, stay for the food. Or come for the restaurant news and stay for the latest story out of the Sac City Unified School Board. You come out of that newsletter thinking, and if you never go to the website and you just read a newsletter, fine. You're a more informed, connected person and resident of this region. And so it's kind of like the abridged version. Okay, I only have 2 minutes in the morning. All right, I've read the morning newsletter. I feel up to date. I feel more connected to my community. And there's also the bridged, we planned the bridge, the Tower Bridge, that kind of thing. And so, yeah.
That's a little more cheeky. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We were talking before we started to hit the record button about your perspective in terms of and we still haven't gotten to the definition of what's an associate general manager do. Maybe you can include that in whatever response you give me. But you shared that you see your role in terms of calling balls and strikes. Yeah. An umpire. It's like, don't get mad at me, I'm just reporting the news. Where and if there's a crossover between an umpire that admonishes the pitcher for throwing a ball at the head of the batter, say, I don't know if the metaphor continues, but the idea that, oh, well, I'm just reporting the news, and if that person lies, I'm not going to call that person out on a lie. I'm just reporting the news.
Right. Yeah.
And you have a lot of that right now. And there's a baked in or an attempted equivalency where you have one attempted a truth and a spin and one at a blatant lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just calling balls and strikes.
Yeah. You know, 'cause one thing we don't do is we don't do opinion writing. And that was something that we heard a ton of in that listening, was people kept saying, don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me what I should be thinking. Give me the news. But to your point, there's a nuance there of the calling balls and strikes. I'll give you a couple of examples of things we've done that I think have really captured that. One was a series of stories we've done on Highway 50. Mm-hmm. I think of Highway 50 of it's the one thing, maybe the only thing everyone in this region can agree on. We all hate Highway 50, right?
It's not the highway's fault. It's those
that
the
highway's fault, right? We don't blame the highway, but like we've all been stuck on Highway 50,
my
right?
God, yes.
Yeah. And it's been going on for a really long time.
Yeah.
Longer than they said it was going to go on for.
Yeah.
And they had been saying, they being Caltrans in the state, saying, well, it's been the weather that's caused these delays. It's been fender benders that's caused these delays. We looked at that and we said, that can't be why this thing's 2 years, $100 million over budget. So our reporter Felicia Alvarez read 2,000 pages of work orders, emails, lawsuits, all these things. Turns out there was a section not far from here, actually, really close from here, where they had put in concrete.
It was bad.
That did not meet safety standards. And they had to tear it up and redo it. And that caused a massive delay. Now, I feel like if Caltrans had just told the public, we put in concrete that didn't meet safety standards, people would have been like, oh, more delays. But you would have understood, right? No, they stayed with the weather, with the fender bender. How does the public now know why Highway 50 has taken as long as it does? Because of a story we did. We did a story about the debate about state workers returning to the office. And there seemed for a while to be a reluctancy from political leadership in this region to go toe-to-toe, particularly with SEIU, about wanting state workers to return to the office. That's changed now. There's more the political kind of leaders have coalesced around, yes, state workers need to be back downtown. But for a while, nobody really wanted to run sideways of SEIU, okay? So we did a story and a quote we had in that story, which was pretty blunt, was basically, and it wasn't our quote, it was a quote from Barry Broom, who runs the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, comparing the influence SEIU has over our local politicians to the NRA's influence over politicians in Texas. So that was not us calling the balls and strikes, but it was giving the platform to somebody to be able to say, this downtown is missing 100,000 people day to day, and our political leaders aren't challenging them because they're afraid of the political ramifications. Again, that's changed, and now everybody's kind of more in line with this. So it's not holding back. It's not our opinion, but it is like, okay, this isn't right. And you have a right to know, public, about what's really going on in the background.
You mentioned that, and mine immediately went to, as a retired state employee of 25 plus years, I think that even misses the issue. It's not, the impact on the local economy of people not having there. Go to the heart of the issue. Is it better for the state of California work production, the widgets that are being produced, to have folks in the seat or to have them work from home? That should drive the decision, not, the hot dog stand's going to go out of business if I don't come downtown.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that debate will continue, right, even after they return office, which, if it goes as planned, will be just a couple weeks from now. of whether it has increased efficiency, whether they even have the space anymore, right, to accommodate everybody.
I've heard that. You'd mentioned, we're running out of time, which we always do. You'd mentioned, though, or maybe I wanted to hear, the kind of the unifying value of local news, that, for better or for worse, we're reading the same, we're attempting to sing from the same hymn book. Because of the digital era we're in, you've got all types of variations and songs and riffs, and everybody's singing, and it seems like a just noise, just absolute noise. How do we get there? Is it going to be, how do we get there in terms of creating a sense of community that print news contributed to in the past? Abridged is one voice, but there are other voices. Has that ship sailed, or I guess what I'm really asking is, what is Abridged contribution to creating community?
Yeah.
And while you're at it, define community for us.
Yeah. Oh, define community. Because community can mean physical community. Community can mean Oak Park, the Thomas, right? Community can mean your workplace. Community.
My chess club.
Yeah. Chess club. Third spaces. So that's one thing I'm really kind of fascinated is this idea of third spaces, like this church, like your Little League, right? The Little League. Places that you go to be with others and gather and share experience.
There was something 20 years ago, roughly 20 years ago, that's just like, okay, I'm going to pass through this western end of the Pony Express, and I like this, dare I put words in your mouth, I like this community. Mm-hmm. What is that? What is that third space, or what is that thing? And how is that thing, I don't say protected, but supported with things like Abridged?
Yeah. Whew, that's a tough one, because I think that the part of the appeal to platforms like Instagram and TikTok is that the algorithms are working against you, and you're only going to see things that reaffirm, right? You're not going to get challenged. You're not going to get exposed to things that maybe disagree, because the algorithm has created the patterns.
Yeah.
We know you like this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And so can a place like Abridged challenge you in the sense to kind of get outside the blinders and get outside the noise and expose you to issues and places, create a sense of place. And yeah, it's digital, but we are showing up in this community in so many ways that I think other news sources aren't doing. We're at farmers markets. I say, anybody wants to talk to me anytime, you want to get me in a room of 5 people or 105 people, like, I will be there. We are showing up physically. And that's the hard work that I think in this digital age, a lot of news sources don't do a lot of, which is the hard work of just like getting out there and being in the community physically, literally physically on a Saturday with a clipboard. What stories do you want? What do you want to see? And we're doing that every day, every week in the community, asking, what do you want to see? What do you want to know? And how do you want to feel more connected?
I'm thinking too, well, if you go to the farmer's market, you're speaking to the farmer's market. How do you, again, I'll ask the same question. How does Abridged contribute to community formation and betterment? Is Abridged talking to a single mom in Oak Park with 2 kids and 3 jobs?
I hope so. You mean talking physically to her?
And how physically,
yeah,
metaphorically?
I hope so.
How are you?
So I'll give you a couple of examples.
Go ahead.
So a better informed community is more engaged and is healthier. Study after study after study shows that communities, cities with a more robust news and information landscape are healthier.
So you do see a social responsibility
100%.
Okay, so again, I'm not
No,
sure.
good.
If you keep calling balls and strikes, it's like, if you're my physician, you've got cancer. Okay. How am I going to get healthy? Well, I'm just delivering the news. You got cancer. Godspeed. God help you.
Yeah.
Well, that's someone else's job. Again,
No, so maybe what we're talking about is an empowerment, is giving the community the platform and the news information it needs. So let's bring up Sac City Unified, right? A school district that's about to go into state receivership, right? That'll have a probably multi-generational negative impact on tens of thousands of families in this city. If places like Abridged aren't there to expose the challenges, the severity of how bad this has gotten, a school board that seems to still be reluctant to accept the fact that they're going to go into state receivership, and we keep challenging them of, you're $100 million in debt. The state's telling you it's not a matter of if, it's when. In fact, the state's telling you you've probably already passed that breaking point, and you're over here still saying, no, we got a one-time thing from the state. We got this. No. Hopefully what we can do is we empower this community to be like, hang on a second, school board. Hang on, school board rep. No, be better. I need to show up now. Like, it's clear that the people we've entrusted to run places like Sac City Unified, like, I need to have a say here. I need to show up at the ballot box. I need to show up at school board meetings. I need to show up at community forums, because now I know what the issues are. Because if the only place I'm getting information from is like the school board's social media or the school district's social media, what kind of view are you going to get there, right? And so our role is, hang on, this is the reality of the situation this school district's facing, and this community needs to do something about it, And I think that's the role we can play. It's not advocacy, but it is empowerment. And I think empowerment for us is a really, really powerful thing.
I would agree. I don't disagree with anything you just shared, but I also would, I don't say push. I'm not pushing.
Not push.
But implore that Abridge, the B, again, if we're not careful, we'll go down that path of Facebook guy. Hey, I'm not causing anything.
Right.
I'm just, hey, here's the food, and I can't help it if you just eat deep fried pork chops or all the time. It's not my fault. I have no social responsibility. I have no societal skin in the game. As I like to say to other people that have been in this space, in answer to that age-old question, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you are.
So we do have a social responsibility, and I'll tell you one thing that I think I push as associate general manager, which means I run, to answer your first question.
That's right. What does an associate general manager
associate general
do?
manager means I oversee all of KVIE's news, both on air and abridged, and our programming. But one thing I always push is we are here to help this region thrive. And there's a couple of kind of arms to that.
Go for it.
That doesn't mean we're a cheerleader, because sometimes helping a community in a region thrive means calling it out on its missteps. Like the fact that Yolo County spent $35 million in a jail that's still sitting empty. The story we wrote, Highway 50, the dysfunction at Sac City Unified. Also does mean highlighting like great new restaurants, great arts and culture, all of these things that we do. But our role is to help this region thrive, because in order for us, Abridged and KVIE, to thrive, we need the region to thrive. So I see it as very circular. And I think that second piece is something that a lot of news organizations don't recognize. They consider it transactional. We got to do our thing because then people will pay for the subscriptions. Like, no, you are here to help your community thrive. And if they thrive, if your community's thriving, you're going to do better.
Correct.
And so that's how I always look at these. That's how I look at it with Abridged and KVIE. If Sacramento is thriving, we're going to be better off for it. And if we're better off for it and we're doing more, the community is going to benefit from it as well.
100%. I agree. I was just thinking of an online publication. I won't even repeat the name. Not in Sacramento. It happens to be on the East Coast, and I'll just leave it at that. Their whole model is based on, I'm giving you information, but I'm giving you screaming headlines so you'll click. That doesn't build community. It provides a bit of information.
We don't do those. Our headlines are straightforward.
No, I understand. No, and that's what I said. And that's in contrast to what you just said. That's that. But it is so enticing and intoxicating. Folks, go for the click.
Go for the clicks.
Yeah.
Go for the clicks. Oh God, lowest common denominator to clickbait headlines. You make a promise in a headline about what the story is about, or ask a question in a headline,
different.
And it's not answered in the
story.
Totally
different. Oh my gosh.
And I think that's definitely contributed to the fatigue
and cynicism.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm tired because I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And if I go down this rabbit hole, the juice is not worth the squeeze.
That's right.
It's not. There's no there.
That's right. Yeah.
Ryan, Lillis, this has been an incredible, brief, all too brief period of time together. And I see you went to the Graduate School of Journalism at UC Berkeley. You're a Bear. I didn't even know that.
Bear.
Oh my gosh. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Thank you for entering to this space. You got to promise you'll be back.
I will. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's really an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.